No, I'm literally a candle faggot. Can we say that in this video? Hey y'all, it's your girl. My name's Tifa Wine. I'm here living my life day to day and I'm about to get ready for the gig. And yeah, I'm really ugly in my square one attire, but that's what you have to wear when you're getting ready to turn a look. So yeah, are we getting ready together? Get ready with me. Step one was shaving my beard off, but that was done off camera. So I shaved and then I used my Fenty Beauty. This is probably like 3 years old. I probably shouldn't be using this on my skin anymore. But I use it anyways. And then I didn't even use this foundation, but I ran out. So I'm using my Ben Nye Olive 6 foundation. So now I'm just doing foundation, you know. Sponsored, yes, please sponsor me. Okay, I tried to get a candle sponsorship like years ago, or not years ago, this was probably like last year. I literally went on my Instagram story and I was like, can some faggot out there like please give me a candle sponsorship because I love candles, and no one responded. So if anyone out there has a queer candle company, like I'll sponsor you, just give me free candles, that's all I want. Very natural tones. I don't get natural drag. I don't understand the point of it. So, okay, some twink's gonna come in the thing and be like, oh my fucking God, he's so fucking rude. Why would you fucking say that about me? I'm literally like, drag is like supposed to be like craziness. So, I don't do any cute color. I don't even own I don't even own like a brown neutral palette. Like one will not be found in this drawer. We don't have those. I literally only have like crazy colors and like everything is purple. Cause that's like my, she's an eggplant queen, you know? She's just out here serving bygone realness all the time, you know? So she's just, I only wear purple or like red on my eyes, like for the last year. I should probably change it up, but you know. I was like, oh my God, this is like a trauma story, but I'm not trying to be a trauma story. So like literally, when I was in undergrad, I went to Western. Okay, yeah, we already, okay, it was my second choice. It was not my first choice. U of T did not accept me, so I was fucked. So I had to go to Western. And I didn't have any queer friends. And I remember like, I would download RuPaul's Drag Race on LimeWire, because this was like 2010, right? On LimeWire, and then I would watch it secretly in my room, and I had this like roommate, and every time he'd come in, I would like turn it off. And then I remember I was having this like queer crisis where I was like, oh my God, like I'm not gay. I shouldn't be gay, blah, 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 blah. So then I thought to myself, if I stop watching RuPaul's Drag Race and other adult content, then maybe I won't be queer anymore. And then that only lasted for like a day, maybe two. And then I watched the first full season like properly, and I saw Nina Flowers, who's like my favorite drag queen of all time. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I was obsessed because she was like, super androgynous, but was not really, like was like a whole man, like out of drag, like very like cis, masculine, whatever, but then would like play with like masculinity and femininity, like in a really like controversial, transgressive way. And really fucked with like conventional sort of attachments to like masculinity and femininity. And I just was obsessed with her, like everything about her performance. And then everyone used to always be like, oh, you should do drag. And I was like, oh, well, no, I'm not gonna do that. Also, I was in London, there was like one gay bar in the whole city. So yeah, there was actually a friend of mine who he's actually in Toronto now too doing drag, but he started doing drag and I was just like, okay, cute. Definitely his style was like very different than what I'm doing. But then I came back to Toronto and then I went to teachers college, and then I started dating someone and they were also really interested in drag. So we like did it together. And then that's how but then at the same time I was also doing like community stuff, and then Tifa Wine just became attached to like my community work. Tifa Wine is literally a middle-aged auntie who doesn't give a fuck. That's who she is. I'm literally obsessed with aunties, like in general. Like I think they're like the most like crazy people. Like they're super intense, they're super like rough and tough, but like they're the most like, they teach us shit all the time. And I was literally like, oh, like I really just want to be an auntie. Like I was like, oh, like the fiercest women in my life are aunties. Whether they're queer, whether they're women, whether they're not women, whether they're like gay men who are also aunties, like all these sorts of like figures of like that sort of transgressive, like radical politic in performance. And I literally was like, all my numbers are like me like crying about a man not loving me, or me crying about like crazy shit that like aunties like teach us to like not do. So that's, I literally had a drag name prior to Tifa Wine, but she died. She went with the clouds and she stayed there. Like she didn't come back. Yeah, then like all of my work became very much attached to like queer of color, like organizing and like community stuff. And then also just because I have a lot of my work outside of drag is about, you know, like Caribbean feminism and queer Caribbean culture and like sound and dance, whatever. I just like used a lot of that knowledge to do that work that I do in drag, and then it just kind of worked out. So, oh my God, what does she do? I'm also a PhD student. So I was just telling you, I used to be a high school teacher, and then I did that for a couple of years, and then I was kind of disillusioned with the education system and the sort of colonial attachments to that was really holding me back from doing the work that I wanted to do. And in the university, I was, you know, I could develop courses and do research and still do that teaching stuff, but obviously through like radical feminist politics that I wasn't able to do at the high school level. Especially like I was like teaching at a private school, and like I had, you know, like white administrators be like, you can't talk about slavery, like you can't talk about these very real historic like legacies that are still with us today in Canada, but they were still very much attached to this like, Canada's a multicultural place, Canada's harmonious, Canada's all these things. And I was like, I'm not doing the work that I should be doing. So yeah, that's how kind of I came to academia. But other than that, I was like, my undergrad was in music, like I was a musician. Then what did I do? I've taught like across the board, like high school, university, college. And yeah, now she's an educator and a researcher and a tanty on the side. Oh wow, okay, it's literally a research profile, we love that. I guess I like do work on a lot of stuff, but like my main stuff right now is like, I do work on queer and trans Caribbean communities and the ways in which they like use cultural resources. Try not to use like super academic lingo. I'm basically thinking about the ways in which queer and trans Caribbean community think about their relationship to space and their histories and the geographies they're in by centering things like music and dance and the voice. And particularly for queer and trans Caribbean people, music and dance is sort of central for as a pedagogy for them to learn who they are, which include things like violence, right? As well as joy and pleasure making. So I'm doing this whole study right now around queer and trans, specifically Indo-Caribbean community in Toronto, New York City, and the relationships to soca and chutney music, and how soca and chutney music and dance has helped cultivate as well reify sort of their relationships to things like identity and subjectivity and experience and history and violence and their queerness in Canada and the States. So that's kind of a broad, you know, she's a soca and chutney scholar, you know, she's trying out here. And then, yeah, I also do work on like obviously drag stuff. I've written on drag stuff. I just taught a course called The Aesthetics of Sexuality. So I teach like women and gender studies courses that are obviously like I think about questions about, you know, sexuality and gender and race and class and the sort of intersections of all those things by looking to things like aesthetics and music and dance and the voice and everyday pleasure making as a way to kind of contend with those questions. So now that I have my chin strap, okay, I bought this foundation today. It's really dark, like it's really out there, but you know, it's drag, so you know. So now I've done like my base and I'm just cutting my cheek right now. So I can create fake cheekbones because I don't have any. My ancestor said you will have a round face and you will deal with it. Yeah, Kim said we have to work, so I'm working right now. Nobody wants to work. It's hard for our drag artists because you basically, if you want to work every day in drag, that's where you have to go. Like there's no other space in Toronto where you can get bookings every single day outside of the village. So it's either like you conform to these very like mainstream, oftentimes racist, classist, misogynist politics, and some people do it and they just like don't say anything and they just like stay there because that's what they need, which is like, you're not gonna blame anyone for like wanting to make money. but at the same time, it's like you do have to like conform to whiteness to be in that space. Like the village is not radical by any means, or like interested in like being radical. So you have to be okay with like assimilating into like mainstream mediocre politics, basically, that are oftentimes violent. But I just feel like for a lot of us, we're not willing to do that. So, like me included, I guess, so I'm not interested in like being in those spaces, and why oftentimes like we have to like produce our own, right? Like Why would not exist if like me and Marissa had not like come together and we're like, okay, let's make this happen, right? So, but I feel like for a lot of artists, it's like that, because the village is still at the end of the, like there's still like people will put out tweets and be like, why do we still have like all white cast shows in Toronto Village in 2022? And like a lot of these white artists don't do anything about it. It's just like, I go on like Instagram every day and there's another like Cruise and Tangos all white cast, Woody's all white cast. Like it's just literally like, I don't know. It's just like this complete ignorance, because now it's like people have the language for what's happening, but they just like don't want to execute it. So it's just like pure like ignorance at this point. It's just like stupidity. Literally like it is what it is, and we should take it for what it is, which is like a mediocre, liberal, you know, racist space. And I think we shouldn't be surprised when these sorts of politics continue to happen. But somehow we are, and I don't get why, because the village has always been like that, you know. Like even when I started my research, I was doing readings about Toronto in like the 1970s and 1980s, and I remember like I read an article about Michelle Ross, who just like unfortunately passed away, right? Who was like a legendary like Black drag artist in the village. And they even wrote about like in the 80s how like she was always positioned like part of the early shows. So like the Black artist would be part of the early shows because that's when all the Black community and like the of color community would come to support. And then as soon as like 839 hits, that's when like all the white twinks come to drink and to party. And so then the cast would change. And I remember even until like a couple of years ago, like even that was still happening with like Michelle Ross. And I was like, I don't know how cognizant or if she cared, but I think from an outsider perspective, it's like we're still seeing those like really fucked up politics like play out, right? You know what's annoying is that this eyeball is way bigger than this eyeball. So this always looks like they always look great in isolation, but then you put them together and you're like, that's two different faces. I don't know what's going on, but you know what was the best? On Halloween, I had like this serious like face malfunction with my powder, and it like made all my skin look really dry, but it was Halloween, so everyone was like, oh my god, your makeup looks so good, like because they thought it was creepy. It was literally an accident. And I remember, so if I was at a gig with this queen Michaela, and she literally came up to me, she's like, oh my god, and her makeup's beautiful, so she was like, your makeup looks so good, and in my head I was like, girl, like this was literally a crisis. Sometimes I like meet like new drag artists and like they literally look stunning like on their first try, and I'm like, I feel like because they like come out earlier, they have more access. Also, they like grew up with YouTube and shit. Like we didn't have YouTube until like what? Like I remember like when YouTube started, like it was like a thing introduced to the world, and people were like, oh my god, blah blah blah. Whereas like I mean I still started with Drag Race and stuff, but I'm just like also I'm not like a visually artistic person. I'm more of a like, you know, my talents are in like music and like other stuff and performance, but visually I'm like not an artist. And then I see people that are like have like amazing brows on the first try, amazing like symmetry, and I'm like, I'm still not there yet, but I'm also an aunty, so it doesn't matter. Their makeup is always like reckless too, so you know. It's so funny because people always ask me, and I'm always like, my parents like don't even know who Tifa Wine is. Like, it's so funny because when I started doing the drag, I was still living at my parents' house, and I used to like hide my clothes away in like this closet, like up there. I remember one time my mom found like this dress I had bought from like Forever 21. It was like a stupid dress. It was just like a $10 dress. And I remember she like washed it, like she fully washed it and like put it away back in my room. Like she folded it and put it in my room, but I have a sister. So I was like, why would she not put it in my sister's room? So that was my coming out. That was it. You know what's funny though? When I was growing up, they used to always be like, all my aunts and stuff would always be like, you were supposed to be a girl. Like they used to always say that to me, being like, oh, like we're preparing for a girl. And then she got homosexual instead. I've never like dated anyone who's been like super like out and about. Like I've never had that experience of being like, my partner is like, their family is like fully with it. Not that they're against it, but just like they don't have that like relationship of like, oh, here we are, you know.